This is going to be a really fun video and a very informative video. It's a fun video because the books that we're unboxing in here are from a seller who is going to see them in this video for the first time. He wanted it to be a surprise. We did a previous video on these exact books where I had them raw, I pressed and cleaned them, and I gave my grade predictions. Now they have actually come back from CGC, and we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to put up my prediction and what it actually got, and then at the end we're going to talk about the huge learning lesson, the big takeaway from this, because that's what this channel is all about, is tips on how to become a better collector, investor, and speculator. And a big part of that is learning how CGC grades books. So this is just another video with more information that you can just put in the back of your mind, and if you stick with us, if you stick around the channel long enough, you're gonna get better at grading. You're gonna get more comfortable with it, which is incredibly valuable and is absolutely free. So if you find this kind of content helpful, please consider hitting subscribe, leave a like and a comment down below, and it will enter you to win a free slab each and every month. And if you head over to brycecomics.com, I have a newsletter over there that we do a slab giveaway every single month just for being subscribed to the newsletter, and that's also where I send out first notification when new inventory is listed, like the slabs that you're going to see in this video. Also, we have a massive Whatnot show coming up tomorrow. If you're watching this the day it comes out, Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. $1 starts on tons of slabs. I'm going to add a whole bunch of keys. We're going to do X-Men 266 and a 9.8 starting at $1. We're going to do Amazing Spider-Man 300 and a 9.4 white pages starting at $1. We're going to do X-Men 221 9.8 white starting at $1, and a ton more books about this caliber and grade. I have a new collection coming in today, so there's gonna be a bunch of new slabs listed up, tons of giveaways, 15 slab giveaways, and a chance at a mini grail. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase, and I hope to see you there. So let's flip this camera around and do this unboxing. Avengers Annual number 10, it came back a 9.0. This is the first appearance of Rogue, and play the clip of what I said I thought it would be. So I think this book would be, I don't know, a 9.2, maybe a 9.0 when you factor in the stains. It's definitely going to present really well for whatever grade it does finally get. So there you have it, folks. It did indeed come back a 9.0. I said it would get a 9.0, and the reason being the main offender there is that small tear in the top left corner. Funny thing about this, somebody in the comment section was very adamant that it would never get a 9.0 with a tear that size. So there you have it, kind sir. It did indeed get a 9.0. Batman 423 came back at 9.4 white pages. Play the clip of what I said I thought it would get. And like, there's not a lot of leniency for a color breaking thing like that. And then we've got spine ticks all along the front. This also isn't going to come out with the press. I mean, it just is what it is. It's so I think this book is probably about a 9.0, unfortunately, because of the spine and the finger bends and creases and stuff. So as you can see, I thought it wouldn't get any higher than a 9.0, and this one doesn't have any notes. And the reason I thought that was because, you know, it had a moderate amount of spine ticks. Moderate isn't the right word for that. You know, several spine ticks. But this little indent right here is what threw me for this book. You can see it right there. It looks kind of like the shape of a fingernail, but it's probably something sharp just dug itself into the book. It is still there. I thought that that would be, you know, a limiting factor, but it appears that they didn't grade that too harshly at all. I almost think that they didn't even factor that into the grade. Maybe they considered it a manufacturing defect or something, or just, you know, felt like it didn't affect the grade too much. So pleasantly surprised about the 9.4. Tales of the Teen Titans number 44, 9.8 white pages. Play the clip of what I said I thought it would get. You know, at the tiniest of spine ticks, or staple tears is technically what it would be right there. So maybe a 9.6 because of that. So I think this book has a real shot at a 9.8, probably 9.6 at worst, unless I'm just totally missing something on this one. So there you have it, folks. I said a shot at a 9.8, 9.6 at worst. We did indeed get the 9.8. Really happy about that one. Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing. First appearance of Jericho. Origin of Deathstroke. Awesome book there. New Teen Titans number 2 came back in 9.8 white pages. First appearance of Deathstroke, the Terminator. First appearance of Trigon in Cameo. Newsstand edition. Play the clip of what I said I thought it would get. I think that would bring it down to a 9.6. So if I give this one a press, I'm a little nervous because of the staple, but you know, I'll just do a gentle press, and hopefully that will clean that right up. You can also see the evidence of the miscut here because of that white line on the front. It is allowed in a 9.8. So this one has a real shot at a 9.8 if we press out that little non-color breaking crease on the front. So there you have it. I said a shot at a 9.8 if we could press out a crease. We did indeed have some success with that and got the 9.8 white. Really happy with the grade on that one. Amazing Spider-Man 129. This one was a bit of a disappointment. Came back a 7.5. First appearance of the Punisher, the biggest book in the batch. Let's play the clip of what I said I thought it would get. There's definitely a large crease right here. It's about a 1-inch crease on this corner. But it probably doesn't break color. This book has already been pressed, but there's some more wear and stuff there. I happen to know from the seller that this book has already been pressed. And a close inspection here, right here, there's another large color breaking crease. And it's hard, I'm not really able to get it on camera, but when you look at it under a magnifying glass, you can tell it's been worked on, probably by whoever pressed this the first time, and there's a little bit of color loss along that crease. It's like a little bit of the yellow has been removed there. And there's also on this corner, there was a crease where the page had been folded over, and it appears like it's been worked on, and you can kind of see right there that there's a little bit of color loss. There's a little bit of white showing through that yellow. So those things considered, with all of those creases, I think that this book taps out at an 8.5, and it might get as low as an 8.0. So there you have it, folks. I said it would tap out an 8.5, as low as an 8.0, but I was wrong. It came back a little bit lower, came back a 7.5, pretty darn close to 8.0, and the grader's notes on this one say light creasing and light water stain. So I think the thing that I underestimated here was the water stain, and you'll see that that is a recurring theme in some of these books that we'll talk about more at the end of the video. But man, I think 7.5 is a really harsh grade for this book. I mean, it does not present like a 7.5. I mean, it really does present more like, you know, and from first glance it presents like a 9.0, but when you look closer at those other defects, you know, it presents like an 8.5. And I would bet money that if you sent this book in another time, it has a real shot at an 8.0 or an 8.5, depending on how, you know, the next grader evaluates that stain and how harsh they want to be. But 7.5 definitely seems like the absolute bottom low end for this book, and I think it has a good shot at an 8.0. Batman Beyond number 1 came back at 9.6 white pages. First comic book appearance of Terry McGinnis. Play the clip of what I said I thought it would get afterwards. So I'll give this one a safety press, but I think it's likely a 9.6 because of that on the front. And looking at the back here, the back looks really clean. These tiny little ticks right here on the back where that light is catching it right there, those are spine ticks, but those would be allowed in a 9.8 to that degree. They're very, very minor. You can have several of those and still achieve a 9.8. So this one is a 9.6, like maybe a 9.8 if a press does a magical thing with that spine tick. So this one I said I thought it would get a 9.6. It got a 9.6 because of that spine tick, and there's no notes on this one. Adventure Comics number 293 came back at 6.5 white pages. White pages is a nice little bonus for this, for a book from 1962. This is the first appearance of Comet the Super Horse and the Legion of Super Pets. Play the clip of what I said I thought it would get. From this cover here is the creasing right here on the cover. So that's about a 1-inch crease, and there's several of them. So that could bring it down to about an 8.0. Then you also have some wear down here on the bottom, another crease right there. So I think that this book taps out at an 8.0. Maybe you get lucky and get an 8.5 on this one, but I think it taps out at an 8.0. So this was another one that I was off quite a bit on, and the reason being, I said it was about an 8.0, which looking back, I was really generous on that. But the notes say a very small stain, and that is the big difference, is that I didn't spend enough time with the book to, you know, really evaluate those stains, and we'll talk about that more at the end of the video. I wasn't, you know, too concerned with grading these books because I was going to get them graded before I sold them. If these were raw books that I were selling raw, I would have spent a little bit more time with it and really evaluate those stains. And actually going forward, you know, just to be conservative, I'm always going to grade stains really harshly. So next we have The Boys #1. It came back at 9.8 white. This one we don't need to play the clip. I just said that it was a 9.8, didn't even need a press. There was absolutely nothing that could be improved. No need to risk damage and press it. It was just a 9.8 as is, and it got a 9.8. Really happy with this one. First appearance of Butcher, Terror, Huey, and A-Train. What an awesome book. Just an epic, epic book to go with that epic show. I'm a huge fan of The Boys. Marvel Premiere #15 came back a 5.5. This is the Mark Jewelers insert. This is the origin and first appearance of Iron Fist, the first appearance of Harold Meacham, and the death of Wendell and Heather Rand. Such an important book to the mythos of Iron Fist. Such a cool book. I have one in my personal collection. Mark Jewelers insert would be a real feather in your collecting cap. It's just so hard to find these Mark Jewelers, especially in high grade. Definitely disappointed in this. Play the clip of what I said I thought it was going to be. There's a crease right there that can be improved with a press, but it won't completely go away. So if I add some humidity and press this book, it'll flatten those out, but you'll likely still see little tiny color breaks and things right there. So this book can benefit a little bit from a press. We'll go ahead and do that. So I think this book is somewhere in the 8.0 range, 8.0, 8.5 after a clean and press. And that's all things considered. That's considering, you know, this little bit of staining. I'll have to see, you know, how that cleans up after I give it a dry clean. But I think somewhere in the 8.0, 8.5 range for that one. So this was the one that I was off on the most. I said it would come back in the 8.0 range. What I missed is the notes say small stain through book. And again, you know, this was just one of those things I wasn't spending enough time with it because there was no, you know, real ramifications of getting the grade wrong because I was going to get them graded before I sold them. But as you can see, I mean, it does not present like a 5.5. Usually with a 5.5, you have like a reader's crease on the side, you know, much more severe creases throughout the entire book. And as you can see, I mean, this book does present like an 8.0 until you flip it over and look on the back. And this is the part that I underestimated here, is this stain. I mean, you can see in the camera, like you can see it, but what I failed to do is look inside the book through all the pages and see that this stain goes through the entire book. So this is considered small. This, you know, in my opinion, rather large area. I mean, it's not tiny, but this is small. And when you look at it in comparison in relation to the entire book, that is a small part of the entire book. But it kind of depends on the eye of the beholder, right? Like the grader, small, affects the grade a lot. The buyer, the collector, when we see small in the grader's notes, we tend to think like, oh, it's going to be this tiny, tiny little spot. But that's where the difference makes, and it has to do with being blinded by desire. You know, the collector wants small to be insignificant, and the grader is looking at it as like, you know, a decent sized chunk of the book, which is technically still small compared to the entire book. So it's really important to get comfortable with the nuance in those terminology and sizes. So we'll talk more here about stains and see if we can get some understanding on how they affect the grade here in just a moment. And last but not least, Conan the Barbarian #23 came back in 8.0 white pages. This is the first appearance of Red Sonja, and played the clip of what I said I thought it would get. I was really surprised to hear that the same crease on a front cover versus a back cover can be the difference between an 8.0 and an 8.5. And it just goes to show how much nuance and subjectivity goes into comic book grading. And it's just something to be really, well aware of. Not all creases are created equal. The severity of it, where it's located, it all comes into play. And then on top of that, you have the individual preferences of that grader. So this crease right here, I would say, is just about a 1-inch crease. So we know a 1-inch crease on the front cover, according to that book, isn't getting anywhere above an 8.0. So I think that this book, in the condition that's in, I think an 8.0 is about the range that this book is going to get. So there you have it. I said I thought it would get an 8.0. It got an 8.0 because of that 1-inch crease down here in the bottom. And as you can see, that's very common with these books. And there was relatively nothing else going on with the book, and so I thought that limits it to the 8.0 range, because that's what the book said. Got an 8.0. So let's talk about some takeaways. The main offender in this submission, and the big learning lesson here, which is an incredibly valuable lesson to get comfortable with and to learn from, is stains. In my opinion, stains are one of the most difficult things to accurately predict how CGC is going to grade. And I want to talk a little bit more about stains, see if we can get some kind of understanding of, how they're graded. I'm using this book here, the official CGC guide to grading comics, which I highly recommend you pick up. It has an index of defects that's like over 100 pages long, talking about all of the different defects and how they interact with each other and how they can affect grade. Let's talk about stains. I'll put up on the screen the actual page that I'm reading here. So this is the only defect that actually comes from all 3 sources: printing, interaction, and environment, which is just kind of interesting. And the grade range, as you can see, is a 1.0 to a 9.8. So it says this defect is quite broad, encompassing a large number of foreign substances that can cause a wide range of stains in size, shade, severity, and risk to the paper. The most common stains are caused by liquid or tape, which vary depending on the liquid or the type of tape used. The most common liquid stain is water, which directly finds its way onto comics via spillage or splattering. Stains can also form indirectly through environments, such as prolonged exposure to humidity. Stains may also be caused by solids, such as stickers, dirt, food, or glue. The size and darkness of a stain is directly related to the amount of time of exposure, as well as the impurities within the substance that causes the stain. A stain may only affect the cover or an interior page, or it may travel through the entire book. Some stains are very dark and very obvious to the eye, while others are very light, only visible by close inspection or under a raking light. They may affect only gloss or can be severe enough to remove ink and even paper, particularly if the stain has caused the paper to stick to another surface. See paper lift. So that's why it's really important to have this book, is you can go back and see all of these different interactions. And it is the only defect that can originate from any of the 3 sources of defects. Stains are among the hardest defects to factor into grade because of their broad range of size and severity, and also because of related defects they may cause, such as rippling, warping, fraying, and substance. A stain's effect on grade can range anywhere between a 1.0 and a 9.8 based on its size, darkness, and how it has affected the paper. Subclassifications of stains include foxing, rust stains, tape stains, transfer stains, smoke damage, and mold or mildew. So I do think that CGC got a little bit lazy with their description here in stain. Most of these defects, they have actual examples of how different types of those defects would affect the grade. They give us nothing here. There's not really helpful. It just says grade range from a 1.0 to a 9.8. So before people go crazy in the comments and say how terrible this book is or how terrible CGC is, do not let perfect be the enemy of good. This book is really, really good. It's not perfect, but it is really, really good. So in this case, unfortunately, we're not gonna get a lot of help from CGC on how they grade stains. And it's somewhat understandable because of how broad they can be. But it would have been nice to have a few examples. So let's go to some of these other sub-classifications and see if we can get some form of help. And one of the most common ones here is foxing. So let's go check out foxing. So here's foxing. I'll put it up on the screen. It says the grade range is a 4.0 to a 9.6. Foxing arises from dead mold, small black spores that find their way into paper and are activated by exposure to humidity and heat. Over time, the mold dies, causing an expansion of discoloration that appears like brown spots. This is another one of those things that it varies hugely. I mean, you can see like very, very light foxing to incredibly bad foxing. This picture down here is pretty darn bad. So it says, like staining and tanning, foxing is difficult to quantify, particularly if it is light. The affected area, the pattern of foxing, and how much it is pronounced are all factors in grade. Light foxing in a concentrated area typically lowers a grade to between 9.0 and 9.4, which darker spots fall between a 7.0 and an 8.5, and foxing that covers most or all of the cover may cause a downgrade to between a 4.0 and a 6.0. So at least here we have some examples. It's saying it's very broad, but here's some examples of where they might lie. So my advice on stains, when you are considering a book for CPR, crack press resubmit, if it says in the notes, small stain, avoid it. That's my advice here, is that it's so broad and you can't tell through the case looking at a book well enough. Just take off the blinders. Don't get caught up thinking, oh, this small stain is going to be something that isn't that bad. Maybe I can, you know, work with it or have it removed from pressing and cleaning. There is a stain removal process that people use that is called hop press or heat overlay press, where they use hydrogen peroxide. And the truth of the matter is, using hydrogen peroxide to press and clean books is restoration, and you are hoping that CGC isn't going to catch the fact that you restored the book. And it happens a lot in this hobby, and a lot of times people get away with it, but CGC is wising up to it. They are, you know, getting more familiar with how it looks when a book has been used with hydrogen peroxide. So it's highly risky. So my advice with buying raw books with stains is to be conservative. Grade it pretty harshly. Unless you are an absolute expert with how CGC grades stains, there could be a lot of risk there. It could be a big swing, right? Like you saw in this video, like the difference between an 8.0 and a 5.5, which has a huge impact on price. So that's the big learning lesson on stains, is it's complicated, it's nuanced, and it's understandable why. I hope that this video was helpful. If it was, please consider hitting subscribe, leave a comment down below, and a like, and it will enter you to win a free slab each and every month. We also have a slab giveaway every single month over at brycecomics.com. If you sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win, and that's also where you get first access to new collections, new books when they come through, is through that newsletter, like the books in this video. Don't forget to check us out over on Whatnot, link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. Huge show tomorrow if you're watching this the day it comes out, and a ton of slab shows scheduled for the foreseeable future on Fridays. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. So here we have Avengers Annual number 10, and let's play the clip of what I said I thought. Starting off with Avengers Annual number 10, it came back a 9.0, the first appearance of Rogue and Madeline Pryor, not to be confused with, son of a, cut that part out. Alright. Avengers Annual number 10, it came back a 9.0, this is the first appearance of Rogue and Madeline Pryor, cut that part out. Avengers Annual number 10, it came back a 9.0. This is the first appearance of Rogue. And play the clip of what I said I thought it would be.